Mystery Caution 2024. That's right. It's finally here. The premiere of our new and improved standalone motorsports channel that we promised late last year, which, by the way, will still be running clips over on Prime Sports Network to keep that going. And of course, there'd probably be a lot of viewers over there on our primary channel that will want to know what's going on with NASCAR, what's going on with IndyCar and F1. But we're going to slowly move everybody permanently over to this channel, the Mystery Caution channel. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. I will be covering NASCAR primarily most of the season by myself. CJ will be around every once in a while, as will Eric. But that'll be my job. We'll be coming on every week and going over every race, odds, trends, picks, things of that nature. And I welcome, of course, especially since we're all going to be on our own when we do these individual videos, we're going to be definitely welcoming participation to let us know what's on your mind and so forth and so on. If you have no idea, I've been in the media business for about 25 years. We've been covering a lot of sports on Prime Sports Network. Been a NASCAR fan since 2000, so I have a lot of experience covering the sport. And last year, my favorite driver, as you can see over here, my boy, Ryan Blaney, got the win, finally. And it's going to be a fun season covering NASCAR this year. Eric, why don't you introduce yourself to our Mystery Caution viewers?
Yeah, Eric Smith. I've been doing this since 2011, so this will be 13, 14 season. Started off doing both IndyCar and NASCAR. Also was doing some NFL and college basketball stuff, and started having kids, settled down. I was like, that's too much. It's a long year because I'm covering everything from basically January to December and back again in January. So scaled down to just racing. Loved it. It's always been a passion of mine, and then just kind of worked my way through to now where I'm an IndyCar employee with writing for IndyCar.com. So that's why I took a step back from the NASCAR stuff, since I am now
Big shot
with IndyCar. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, hey, I'll take it.
Yes,
I do
absolutely.
anything different other writing wise. It's just for one series. So not that there's a necessarily conflict like IndyCar and NASCAR hates each other, but it'd just be a conflict. I don't want to get anybody in trouble or hot water. I'll just tell you, talking NASCAR too if I'm not supposed to. So now I got even more insight with the IndyCar.com guy. So
and we're gonna and the great thing too is you're gonna have the opportunity to interview drivers in the IndyCar series and other personalities that make up the sport, and not only drivers, but we're going to try to do our best to educate our viewers on the sport, and also give back to the expert and the really diehard fans the driver interviews they're looking for. So but what would you say, just a time frame on when you think the first driver interview will be available on this channel?
I don't see any reason it won't be we'll say within the next month. I mean, we get started March 10th, so
Okay.
a month from now down in St. Pete. So
Looking forward to it.
That'll be my first weekend on, I want to say, this side of the wall, on the IndyCar side. So we'll learn as we go. I mean, I don't foresee it being much different other than I'm wearing an IndyCar shirt there, but there are differences of being an IndyCar employee on a race weekend than
Yes.
a freelance journalist on the other side. So
100%.
yeah, so we'll see what we can and can't do when we get across that bridge, because I haven't done it on this side yet till March 10th at St. Pete.
CJ?
Hello again, CJ Radoon, still writing for rotowire.com. I've been covering the motorsports industry probably 15 plus years. Always on the fantasy side, won a couple of awards for my writing on fantasy sports, mainly NASCAR. Joined with Greg here, gosh, I don't even know when, but it was a Daytona weekend many years ago in the past. Happy that he still has me back this year. I will continue to focus and be your primary person on Formula One, almost on a weekly basis, not quite with the Formula One season. That'll kick off that first weekend in March. The very last day of February is the first time the cars will hit the track for the official 2024 season. And I will be making guest appearances for either NASCAR or IndyCar or both as we go along here, and looking forward to continue our fantasy games and giving you all of our picks each and every week.
Yeah, the great segue, because we did draft our fantasy teams for 2024 in NASCAR. So I will share that with everybody because I am going to be doing, obviously, I'm going to be doing the NASCAR race previews, including the Daytona 500. So that'll be available on this week on this channel. And then I'll update the fantasy lineups for everybody so you can see exactly who we chose and so forth. But I guess quickly, what did you guys think about your fantasy teams? Eric?
Pleasantly surprised. Same kind of anchors that I have with Hamlin and Logano that I typically take, but no, I'm okay with it. We'll see when we get going. It's just hard to tell with this year with Toyota and Ford having different body styles of what is that going to look like? Is that going to take Chevy's performance down? Is it going to elevate theirs? Is it going to do nothing and it looks the same? So I'm tempering my expectations until, I guess probably a couple months in because we got a couple super speedways to start. So we'll see. We'll see how much of a factor these body styles are and what it does for competition.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I have the document that I use, just simple, no frills, so you can take a look at what our teams look like. There's Eric's team in alphabetical order, of course, and this is CJ's team in alphabetical order, and then this is my team. Same way, all the way through. Let me see. Do I have? I think, yeah. Here's the draft order. So I'll ask you, CJ, take a look at the draft order. You kick things off with Kyle Larson, and then you had to wait with the snake format to get to Byron with pick number 6 overall. So what did you think? What were the highs and lows of your draft?
Well, I don't like picking first and last. I'll put it that way. There are too many picks in between. It makes it really challenging. I wanted to get Joey Logano this year for as often as Eric talks about Logano in even years. Yep. I wanted to make sure that I had. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out, but I'm relatively happy with what I got. I think there are a couple names. I did go with a couple dark horses that are out there that I think are poised to have some pretty good years or good season this year in 2024. Like Eric said, though, with 2 new body styles out of 3 manufacturers, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out this season. Cautiously optimistic as to where we stand right now.
Okay, so yeah, because by the way, that's really what hurt you last year on fantasy was the bottom tier of your team. Didn't get a lot there. So right now you're going with Eric Jones, you got Berry and Hemrick. So Hemrick and Berry are the wild cards, really, at this point in time. Why did you go with those particular drivers?
So watching Josh Berry step up into the Cup season last year, or the Cup Series last year, as a substitute role for multiple teams, showed he was really versatile. He did really well in the number 9 machine. He's stepping into a former champions car, former championship winning team's car, and I know that team has had their struggles. Tony Stewart's talked about that openly in the offseason, but they're going to make things better. And Josh Berry is the type of driver that can make that happen or take advantage of that when it does happen. So I feel pretty good about him. As far as Daniel Hemrick, not a lot of wins for him, but yet he got his championship, right? And he's got a lot more experience. And I think he's coming back to the series with a new perspective, a new approach. We'll see if that pays off. Obviously, a big wild card for him. He's going to be one I'm going to be watching very closely over the first couple of races, though, just to see how he gets his feet underneath him.
All right. And then, Eric, I noticed you have a couple of drivers that you're hoping will have comeback seasons later in the draft, and that includes Bowman and Briscoe.
Yep. Bowman was – I'm kind of going on – he just needed that fresh start. Remember, he was leading the points before that injury. If he could pick that back up, I think that injury bothered him more than he let on as the season went on. Those races he missed were a factor of learning this car and this team because he had a new crew chief too last year. So I just figured you're with Hendrick Motorsports. You can't miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. That's just not going to be a good thing. So I feel like they're good enough to make a playoffs. It is a 48 team, so let's see if that helps. And then with Briscoe, I've just taken a flyer on Stuart Haas. Like CJ said, Tony's not happy with the way they felt. I think they were reeling, and I'm not overly optimistic they're going to come out of it. But if they are, Briscoe is the only one on the team that's won a race and it's
Crazy.
one.
Wow.
So we'll see, because with them, they have to start fast, right? I mean, because there's no deal with Ford past this season, and I could see it kind of hurting them if they get to a point where they just look like they did last year. There's rumors they could scale back, and I think that pressure, Tony's hands are. He's getting a little more involved because he doesn't want to go backwards. So we'll see.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see what he does.
All right, now let's before we get to predictions, and then we're going to give our final four predictions, our champion and our sleeper, and we're going to take a look at the championship odds, of course. What would you guys consider, Eric? What would you consider to be, because you guys touched up on it just a little bit, the big story heading into this season, whether it's car, teams, rules, schedule. What would be for the fans out there? What do they need to know?
I'd say for me, it is the car, just because we'll see if it pans out. I mean, Chevy's dominated lately. I mean, CJ's got a great team with Larson and Byron because they led the series in wins and laps led last year. But they're Chevrolet. They both made the Final Four. Does this new car, and I shouldn't say new car, new body style. It's the same car, just new body style for Ford and Toyota. Does that close into that gap at all? Does that take laps led and wins away from Chevrolet and give maybe more an advantage to those two camps?
All right, so explain that. Ford and Toyota, they changed their body styles to what? To catch up, to try to get more speed, the way they've noticed out of Chevrolet.
Yes, and an example would be Toyotas. Again, so we get going, nobody truly knows. But for Daytona, especially super speedways, their front end is a little more kind of like this, and where Fords are more flush.
Okay.
So it's easier for a Ford to draft and push because they lock and go forward. Toyota's like this. You hit an uneven surface, it's going to spin them out. That's why we saw Toyota struggle a bit. So with that new rounded nose, they think it's going to provide a lot of not only downforce, but it's also going to help them cut through the air, which means more speed too. So they're hoping both sides. From what I've heard, Toyotas may have the car to beat this year across all tracks. But Ford, they've been down the last 2 years, right? But they also won the championship. So I'm just curious how that's going to look. Does their performance, does it change at other tracks on the season, but they take a dip at a place somewhat like Phoenix, where they've been good there, and that's why they've won the championship the last 2 years.
True.
So that's where I'm curious how much is that going to change things. Chevy, now granted, they're going to have a decision to make in a couple of years because they're phasing out the Camaro, and that's what they've been running. Are they going to change brands, what they want to use for their next gen car in a couple of years? Do they change anything on that body style?
Okay.
So that's kind of an underrated thing that I think, to me, I'm going to have my eye on is what does that look like as far as the season goes on. And we're not going to get an early read because, like I said, we got two super speedways in a row, which we might read on super speedways because Ford's been so dominant at those tracks. But we got Phoenix early, we got Vegas, so this is going to tell a lot of how much that's really helped them. So I've got my eye on that early on.
And the same thing with the road courses, of course, right? Because there was a lot of, even though some of the teams improved last year, that's also, is that part of the new design? Or
change everything. Yeah, it's going to change. That's why it's going to be hard to take some of the past historical stuff with some of these guys. Early, we're going to have to just rely on what they've done because we don't know what the car's going to look like. Yeah. But if that car is improved, then these recent finishes with this next gen maybe aren't indicative of what they can do with this car because maybe the car held it back. Because remember, Toyotas haven't done much on road courses at all. Tyler Reddick came in last year and won a race, but they really overall weren't much factors. Maybe this changes things. So it could change a lot. I mean, because if they're taking finishing spots up front, it's taking spots where Chevrolet was. And Chevrolet hasn't had a counter yet because they too don't know what it's going to look like.
Okay.
So interesting little storyline, I think.
Yeah, a lot to talk about, no question, and we'll try to update everybody on the weekly show with as much of that type of information that we can to just remind everybody as we're going along that this is new for Toyota and Ford, and how does that work, and so forth and so on. So yeah, it's going to take a while, like you said, before we really have a good idea of past performance tracks that we'll update everybody on, no question about it, and that's why you want to stay here throughout the season. And also, don't forget to subscribe and share the video and like the video, because that's going to make us grow as quick as possible, and that's going to help everybody out there as motorsports fans. Okay, so let's get right to it. I'm going to pop up the draft sharks, the draft kings board here. So let's start, of course, with NASCAR futures, and look, lo and behold, who is the favorite to win the championship? Mr. Ryan Blaney. So I think what was that?
I think he's finally getting his due diligence. He was last year. We kept talking, what's the guy got to do to become a favorite? He was always like 14-1, 16-1, and all it takes is one championship.
And now it's almost too overkill. So, because I'm not now. By the way, I didn't get you off the air. I didn't. We went over proposed changes for futures. Are you guys going to be doing futures this year the way that we proposed it, or are you staying away from futures this year? Did you see the proposed changes?
I'm in. Yeah, I'm staying. Yeah.
All right. So the proposed changes are that, and this is going to make it a lot easier for us, and it's really more like the average fan anyway, that you only have so much money that you're going to spend on futures a year. So we say, all right, what if we spend $1,000 in our pot for futures? You can spend that money any way you like with a minimum bet of $100, maximum obviously $1,000, and then you can get anywhere from 10 bets to 1 all season. So it's it. Once you run out of money, you're out. So for instance, Ryan Blaney, why on earth would any of us, unless you just think he's the champion and you put $1,000 on him, but that would be silly. You're going to stay away from the shorter odds guys early on, and you're going to kind of wait. Hope maybe you get some better odds, which is what I'm going to do. I don't know what you guys are going to do. So taking a look at the odds, and then we'll get into our picks and kind of talk about the futures too. But let's go with your picks. CJ, give me your top 4 for Phoenix this year.
Larson, Byron, Hamlin, Logano.
Oh, veterans. Except for Byron. Byron's looking to break through. So Byron and, of course, Hamlin still hasn't won a championship. All right. And let's go with your championship pick.
I'm going to go William Byron this year.
Excellent. New champion. And give me your sleeper. So you could see by the odds, the sleepers are going to have to be anybody starting with Kyle Busch there at 14-1. So anybody from Kyle Busch on, who would be your sleeper? It does not necessarily have to be championship sleeper. It could also just be, hey, I really think Daniel Suarez might be a Final Four guy. So so that would be considered a sleeper. So who is your official sleeper for the year?
So my official sleeper for the year actually is going to end up being Chris Buescher. He had a couple of wins last year. I think with Keselowski in the focus, that organization has got to be able to get them to where they were last year. Both of them making the playoffs. Keselowski didn't win. Buescher got several wins. I think that team is poised for another breakthrough, a return to former glory. So I'm going to go with Chris Buescher being the young gun in that stable.
All right. Now, let's, by the way, we're going to say goodbye to Eric in about 15 minutes. CJ and I will close out the show talking about F1, so stay tuned for that. Next up now, and by the way, Buescher, you did put your money where your mouth was, because I should have known you were going to take Buescher, because you took Buescher maybe a little early in your fantasy team. So that was a tip-off that you're all in on Buescher this year. You also have Keselowski.
Yep. Well, Keselowski wasn't my top choice. As I said, Logano went early with the even number to Eric, even number year. There were a couple that you guys chose ahead of me. That first pick in that snake draft format is just tough. So Keselowski at that point wasn't somebody I planned on, but at the time he was the best available.
Okay. Eric, give us your top 4, final 4.
Well, I was going to go all in on the Logano thing because I kept saying it, but until we see Ford, I'll win as my fantasy team, but for right now, I'm going to say Larson, Hamlin. I'm going to say Reddick, just because Toyota, if they say Toyota is going to be as good as they say they are, I'm going to trust Reddick. And my other one is, so hold on, I just want to make sure I don't say Larson, Hamlin, Reddick, yep. And Chastain. I think some reason Chastain is going to get there. I think Chastain will beat out Logano for that spot. Now, granted, the even number year Logano gets there, but it may sound stupid. I've been living by that motto for years, not putting him there, but I'll stick with it. With my sleeper, I'm going to go with.
By the way, just so you know, based on the way we have it here, Reddick and Chastain do qualify as sleepers, or you have somebody else.
I'm going to go a little bit longer because I think he's going to make a run. And CJ's boy last year, Ty Gibbs. I think Ty Gibbs is poised to. I think he'll win multiple times this year. I mean, we saw in the Clash. I mean, he had a chance to win that race. I just think, especially David Wilson with Toyota said that he expects all four Gibbs guys to make the playoffs, all four to win races. Ty's got a hell of a talent. Last year, being a rookie, he's lost his uncle and his dad recently. I just think it was a lot to take on, and he won Rookie of the Year and almost made the playoffs on points. So I really think Ty's going to have a year. I could see him getting to the second round, maybe round of 8, depending on how he does in the tracks in his Toyota. But if Toyota's going to take that big leap forward, I think Ty goes with it. So that's why I got a little bit of a longer shot, because what was it, plus 2,500 right now to win a championship. I'm not going that far yet, but I think he can make a run.
Yeah, well, I have him on my fantasy team, so I believe in Gibbs, just like you said. And I also believe in Chastain, because he's actually going to be my championship sleeper. So he's going to be my main sleeper because I think he could win the championship. So I'm right there with Chastain. I'm going to go Bell, Byron, and Elliott. So I think Elliott is somebody that I just get the feeling that he's going to have a little bit of a redemption this year, because he really needs to. So
yeah.
We'll see if that happens. But I'm going to go ahead and.
Chastain I think he's my championship pick right now. I mean, look, he won Phoenix last year, and then the year before, what, he second, third.
And what happened to Blaney last year, the year before, he would have won, and then ended up winning the championship. Yep.
So I'm just going strictly based off Phoenix of why I think he's it's just one of those, like, if he was in that championship 4, he would have won. I think Trackhouse is what they've done in this short of time. Now you're giving him another year. So I expect him to do well.
Now, let's move on over for the time we have for you. And again, Eric is going to have his own preview for the season on one of his own videos, so keep that in mind. But we're going to go ahead and check out the futures for IndyCar. And as we do, I have to ask you, though, same thing about NASCAR. Tell us about the big changes that the fans need to keep an eye on for IndyCar this season.
Yeah, I mean, one, everybody's expecting, I can't touch it too much. This is where some things I have to skate around with the hybrid. They're pausing that right now because a lot of people think, well, that's supposed to come this year, and it was. So that'll mid-season, they're hopeful, that thing rolling out. But until then, there was some safety things they did on the car that made them lighter. And so they were already planning on the heavier hybrid unit. So now that's not on there, and the car is lighter, the aero screen's lighter. We're expecting some record speeds, including could be right here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Are we going to hit the 4-lap average? Probably, the way they talk. We could see a 236, 237. Are we going to hit the single lap of 239? No, I don't think we're going to get that far or that fast. But we could see some record speeds with a lighter car. So that's going to be a huge storyline. Kyle Larson, naturally, running the Indy 500 is a huge storyline. Elio going for the 5th. So Indy, it's its own beast this year. We have an all-star race at Thermal Club in March. Milwaukee's back. So as far as changes, we're still chasing Penske and Ganassi for that championship. They've won every year since 2013. They've got the best equipment, drivers. The big thing is going to be, can McLaren or Andretti jump into that mix? That's going to be the big overwhelming storyline. And then when the hybrid does come out, is who can adapt to that quicker. So that's going to be its kind of own little storyline. But as far as the car, other than it becoming lighter and the hybrid being delayed, not a whole lot of change. The big drivers are still with each other. Penske has got the same trio. Ganassi, Dixon, and Palou are back. They got some youth. So I'm just curious with that, how that's going to look with them, is because Palou, they lost Marcus Ericsson to Andretti, and Andretti downsized from 4 cars to 3. that youthfulness in the Ganassi camp. They're saying that adding a car for Kiffin Simpson, where you got a second-year guy and 2 rookies, to go along with Dixon and Blow is going to be helpful for Dado, where Andretti, by scaling back from 4 cars to 3, is going to be helpful to them because there's more resources on 3 cars compared to 4. So I'm curious how that mix goes. Rapinski stays status quo at 3. They won the Indy 500. So how does that all look? Alex Palou, I mean, the dude was unstoppable last year. He had a top 8 finish in every race. So how does that adversity going to look? I don't think he's going to go all 17 races this year in the top 8. So how do they respond when something happens like that? Where Scott Dixon, I mean, he had the top 7 in 16 of the 17 races himself. It was just that 27th place finish at Long Beach that killed him. 3 wins in the final 4 races. He actually outscored Palou in the last 11 races, 268 to 239. He's trying to get his 7th championship. So I think there's just a lot in the mix right there. Colton Herta, he said it was his worst season he's ever had last year. It's the first year since 2015 he's never won a race. And even all the junior series coming through, he's always at least won 1 race. He didn't win anything. His teammate Kyle Kirkwood won twice. So does that benefit them going from 4 cars to 3 cars? Does he find victory lane? If he's winning, that keeps the Penske and Ganassi guy out. So there's just a lot at stake. Andretti's usually good at St. Pete, the season opener, so that's going to be one of the things we're going to be looking at when we get to March in St. Pete is that Andretti mix. McLaren, they brought in David Malukas. He's going to take over. Granted, he got hurt. He's going to be out for a couple of races. So it's really down to Pato and Alexander Rossi. Rossi was telling us he's in purgatory because he's finished 9th in the points like the last 3 years. Does he have it in him for one last charge to go at these big teams, or is it all on Pato award? Pato last year, similar thing. He had 4 runner-up finishes. He didn't win, but he was runner-up 4 times.
Yeah.
You take out his Long Beach crash when he was a little overzealous with Dixon. You take out the Indy 500 crash when he was a little overzealous with Marcus Ericsson. In Detroit with the pit road issue, you take those 3 races out. The rest of the 14 races, his average finish is 4.85. So he's right there. That's championship worthy too. So that's just a lot of guys right there we mentioned. Only one of them can win a championship. And then you got Juncos. You know, it's internally we're all like, is this thing going to combust? How long is this going to last? The Argentinian fans last year are throwing death threats at Callum Ilott. The team backs more the fans over Callum Ilott. Oh yeah, there's death threats about there was a lot of drama. Well, now enter Romain Grosjean into the mix, who is a lot of drama himself. So he's a guy that doesn't take a lot of responsibility when things go wrong. That's why there's a lot of turmoil with Andretti. And nothing against him, he'll admit that. And now you're going to go to Juncos with a team with death threats, and they're already internal fight. How is that going to last? How is that going to look? So that's another thing we'll be looking at. And then the TV contract. I mean, that's up after the year where NASCAR they signed their new deal. Now it's IndyCar's turn to hopefully get an increase in revenue for the TV side, and that should be close. They're getting close to announcing something. So a lot of play here. We'll dive into more as the season goes on, but yeah, there's a lot of little things that we're watching here that's on the radar.
Yeah, and you're going to go again in depth on a lot of this new stuff that you need to keep an eye on in your season preview video. So that's coming up at some point, no later than probably the first week of March. So stay tuned for that. That's why you want to subscribe, hit the notification button. They'll let you know when those shows will be available. We're going to have some live shows as well. So that will give us an opportunity to interact with you guys as we air our videos. Okay, so let's. I've already popped up the futures, so let's go right into it. And then I also want you, as before you go, I want you to also talk about the rookies to keep an eye on, and if there are any potential breakthrough drivers that, in other words, like a sleeper, somebody that could actually contend for the title this year that nobody's expecting. So let's get into it. And CJ, of course, I'm going to get your opinion on this as well. So we'll start with Eric, though. Eric, give us your championship driver.
I'm going to go Dixon. And right now on DraftKings, I'm looking at right now, he's plus 800. And for those reasons from last year, he ended the season hot. And a thing I did an article on IndyCar.com, so I'll dive a little bit deeper now. The last 3 years, because all their success has promoted guys. So it's pit stand, in which that would mean like in NASCAR, you're constantly getting new crew chiefs and crew guys on your pit box making decisions. Well, they were doing so good, he was losing those guys. They were getting promoted. They were going to other teams. Well, they did do a good job last year, but they kept everybody. So you looked at that terminology and learning each other, and that's why those stats picked up at the end of the year, is what he told me. And this season, they're all back. So if they ended that way and we have the same car back this year and the hybrid's delayed, you got to think he should kind of pick up where he left off.
Okay.
So for plus 800, and really I'll say a cohort there, I like fellow New Zealand native Scott McLaughlin, also at plus 800. He's been getting better as the years have gone on, Penske driver. So I'd say both of those guys, and a
So
sleeper.
would McLaughlin basically be your runner-up?
Yeah, I'd say they're kind of 1-2 right now.
Okay.
He was third, he was third last year. So one more step up. And he talked about how hard it is to break through. He called it like weight loss, is when I talked to him about this too. And again, same on IndyCar.com, those stories are posted back to back actually. I find that last little bit, because he went from new, never done these tracks, never raced on ovals really here before, to he went from 14th to 6th to 4th to 3rd to now he's there. And I was like, what's it going to take to get that last little bit? And his thought process was, it's like weight loss. You start losing weight, and cut that last little bit of chunk out. That little bit is when it takes the hardest. Because you've gone through so much to lose it. You're tired. You're mentally worn out. Why are you still doing this? You already look fine. It's getting that last little bit. He goes, that's what this is like. It's that last little bit of effort to get there, and he feels like they're there. So, and a sleeper, it's weird to call him a sleeper right now. I'll give you two, because there's one that's weird to call a sleeper, another one he's a legitimate odds-wise. But Will Power's plus 1,800 in the Penske guy, and he won the championship 2 years ago. And the fact that he's a two-time champion plus 1,800 and a Penske guy, I would jump all over that right now. The reason he didn't win last year was his wife was going through some serious health concerns, and it took a toll on him. He almost quit. He almost walked away. Couldn't do it anymore. And health concerns are behind him. She's good. She's be back at races again. Another story, it's on IndyCar.com, about how much his wife does, because he gets in his head a lot, how good she is for him to balance that out. So plus 1,800 for the guy that just literally 2 years ago won a championship is,
I like it,
to me, a no-brainer. And Christian Lundgaard, plus 2,000 right now. Sophomore season last year, he won. Ray Hall's been great on road and street courses. Can they get that last little bit on ovals? They had an Indy recovery plan, trying to get better. We'll see if it works. But he was 8th in points last year, and he's plus 2,000. So if somebody's going to be a true sleeper in that sense, I would say him. It's weird to call Will Power a sleeper, but he's right there at plus 1,800.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And rookies?
Linus Lundqvist is going to be the guy to watch. He impressed last year with Meyer Shank. He ran a couple of races, got Ganassi's attention. He's a Ganassi driver. The kid can flat out drive. He can win. He's Indy Next, which is, for the NASCAR listeners, Indy Next is the same of the NASCAR Xfinity Series, what they are to the Cup Series. Indy Next is that way at IndyCar. He's a champion a couple of years ago in that. And you're giving him a Ganassi car, and a teammate, Marcus Armstrong, won the Rookie of the Year last year. And right now, Lundqvist is plus 10,000.
Yeah, 100 to 1. He's 100 to 1.
Yeah. I'm not going to say he's going to championship, but I can see him finishing top 10 in points. He's that good. So he's going to be the one to watch. Tom Blomqvist is another one, another name. Came from sports cars. Good driver. Slow to adapt a little bit to this car last year in the few opportunities, but he's going to be one to watch. Christian Rasmussen's the other rookie, but he's not running full-time. He's just running road and street courses in the Indy 500. So the other two guys, the two faces. Oh, Kipton Simpson. I don't want to forget one. He is running. He's also with Ganassi, but big learning curve, multi-year deal for him to learn. So I don't expect much in the way of contending for a championship out of him, but that is another rookie in the paddock this year.
All right, so we're gonna let you go. CJ and I will wrap up. We'll again, I'm gonna get CJ's picks here for both Indy and F1 picks. Yeah, okay. Who's gonna finish runner-up in F1? And but before we do that, Eric, again, and by the way, we have a link in the description for Twitter. It's just, you can have the same Twitter handle?
Just Eric _IndyCar.
Oh, so
But
now it's new.
Well, it was race review. Now it's just IndyCar.
That's
I
right.
switched it.
Well,
Just,
obviously,
so,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll have a link in the description area, of course, of this video for subscribing and following you on Twitter. And that's the best way to keep up with all your work then at this point. Is that basically
Yep.
it?
I post everything there. Yep. Everything I did in the past, nothing changes. If I need to be censored and not answer some questions, I'll stay tuned or something. But I'll respond. Same way. I'll still put out all the TV info and everything. So ask any questions you got.
Excellent. And then, like I said, you'll be back to preview the season real soon, and you'll be on our other show, our NASCAR show, from time to time. Can't wait for that first interview that kicked things off before the first race of the season in IndyCar. Eric, appreciate it. It's going to be a great season here on Mystery Caution, and can't wait. I'm glad we were able to get this thing underway, and I know you got to run.
Yep, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. All right, so there goes Eric. He's out the door. And this could be a lot of fun, CJ.
As I sit here floating in my little racing world here, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited for Eric. I think it's a great opportunity for him, and it'll definitely bring all of us closer to the IndyCar world. He and I were at Mid-Ohio together last year, walking around the paddock, talking to people, etc., showing our kids around. He's got the great fortune of doing that almost every single race this season, so good for him.
Yeah, really, really going to be a lot of fun this season because that's the one thing that we know that we've been missing, and that's the interviews. And now that we're going to get the interviews with the drivers, of course, now that should also make it a lot easier for us to get interviews in F1 and in NASCAR 2 when we're able to show the media representatives of those drivers, well, here are some of the drivers we're currently interviewing on our channel. So we'd like to have some NASCAR coverage. We'd like to have some F1 coverage, but in order to do that, we need some interviews with you guys. So I think that'll help. And once we get going, if you guys out there, you have any questions, comments, obviously, but anything regarding interviews, and I'm not talking about the big names. Everybody knows about, oh, we got to interview this guy or that guy, even though that's going to be the hardest for us to get naturally. But if you have any more obscure drivers that you would like for us to interview, up-and-coming drivers, they may not even be in the Cup Series in NASCAR. It could be a lower level division. Anybody that you want us to get on this channel, let us know, and we will go after that driver. All right, so Eric has Dixon winning the championship. McLaughlin as his runner-up, even though he's kind of, to me, he's going to probably box those two in 8-1, put all his money on those two guys, and hope one of the two wins. That seems to be the logic there. So who do you like, CJ, to win the IndyCar championship?
Honestly, I was pretty relieved to hear what Eric had to say because he's in the know a little bit more than he was in the past, and I was not far off at all. It is going to be very difficult to beat, I think, Alex Palou and Scott Dixon this year, but if there is anybody that can do it, it's going to be Scott McLaughlin. He was going to be my top choice coming in here. I really think that Penske, with all of their resources, is not going to want to lose to Ganassi in the IndyCar Series here again. Yeah, Joseph Newgarden was an ace on the ovals last year. Scott McLaughlin was fantastic on the road courses, but they were missing just that little bit of edge to be able to get them over the hump to victory lane multiple times. He still finished third in the championship with just one win. So I do think Scott McLaughlin, for me, is going to be my top driver. I don't think Penske is going to rest at all. I think they're going to put in extra midnight hours trying to catch up with Ganassi this 2024 season. So McLaughlin's my guy.
Okay.
And I do it sticking with the Penske theme as far as the long shots go and dark horses go. Again, it's hard to call him a dark horse, but Will Power out there, he did underperform in 2023. He did have a lot going on off the track. With Penske's extra push, with somebody like Will Power getting the things in his life and off the track back in gear, I think he's going to be right up there in the top four as well. So I would go with Will Power as my dark horse.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing we talk about in golf a lot, about trying to find the personal behind the scenes issues that might come into play on why a golfer is not having a really good season. Because sometimes you look at a golfer not having a good season and you're like, wait, what's going on here? I mean, this is a really good player. What's happening? And then you find out afterwards. Well, they're having a new baby. They just moved. They just got married. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on in personally to these young athletes, these young, individuals that we just take for granted sometimes. And that's why if you look at it the way you guys have just analyzed Will Power and last year, it makes a lot of sense. That now it doesn't guarantee anything, but what it does is it just gives you an option where, hey, wait a second, here's a guy that went through a lot of distractions last year that maybe that was the primary reason that he did not have as good a season as he normally would. Normally, maybe he'd be 8-1 to win the championship, but you're getting 18-1 now, and now you got to try to take advantage of that. So.
I think if he hadn't had the 2023 that we all saw, he would be way higher in the odds. But yeah, I mean, racing as a racing driver, it's very much a necessity to have your off-track life in gear. And there was a lot of stuff that was on the back of his mind, and you just can't perform at the level that you need to perform in a series as competitive as IndyCar. And that's why Will Power suffered. I don't think it has anything to do with his ability. In fact, I know it has absolutely nothing to do with his ability. So I think with that coming into focus, as well as Penske's push to catch Ganassi, that little rivalry that they've always had between those two organizations, I think Will Power is going to be poised certainly to take a step forward and maybe even contend inside the top four.
Hey, it's good enough for me. I'm gonna put money on him to win the championship now. All right. This first for me because I just started to pay attention to IndyCar over the last year or so. But I'm going to go ahead and take Pato O'Ward as my pick to win the championship at 7-1. He just looks like he's one of those young, sort of like a William Byron type, Christopher Bell type, that he's Ryan Blaney type, that he's getting close, and maybe this is his year. So. And then since you guys went with McLaughlin as runner-ups and championship pick, I'm going to go ahead and put Ericsson in as a runner-up to Pato O'Ward. Do you have a sleeper, somebody that you think that we should be keeping an eye on, like deep down the road? And again, doesn't have to be this year, but somebody that you think we should be keeping an eye on. Eric might have already talked about him. Or maybe there's someone else. Could even be a veteran. Somebody that you think maybe they're going to have a comeback. Somebody that you think is an intriguing sleeper.
Eric already mentioned him, Linus Lundqvist. He was in just a few races in 2023, but the second he got behind the wheel, whether it was for a test, whether it was a race weekend, whatever it was, he was fast right off the mark, and he had control of the car. And he knew exactly what he was doing with some seat time, with some coaching, with the ability to be able to get those last couple of tenths out of the car. He's going to be really, really difficult to beat. So I think Linus Lundqvist, he's a new name on the scene. He had a couple of starts last season, but if you were paying attention, you would have known that he very much impressed in those starts. And I think that with more time, more experience, he is going to rocket up that order really quickly.
All right. Now, we're going to wrap up with F1. So,
the ever intriguing F1.
Yeah. Let me make sure. What time? How much time? What's your window here?
I got a little bit.
Okay.
Good to go.
So let's pop up. Okay. Here are the odds. Let's go to Formula One. Let's see. What is? Oh. What the hell is Formula E?
Oh, you don't want Formula E.
I know. What is that?
Those cars make no noise. They're the electric cars. That's
jeez.
Sports car racers and Formula One drivers hone their craft until they can get back to Formula One, basically.
That's nuts. All right.
It's an entertaining series, but it's very different.
Okay. So I don't even have to go down here. So Max Verstappen, he's starting out at minus 370. Oh, Lordy. At some point, someone or a team or just something's going to happen, and it's not going to be so easy for Max.
It could be this year.
You believe that is possible?
It is possible that it could be this year. One of the biggest, there are really only two news stories that are going on in the Formula One world right now. One of them surrounds Red Bull, which is Max Verstappen's team. Red Bull has been fantastic. A lot of it has to do with Max Verstappen, but a lot of it has to do with Christian Horner and the way that he's built that team and he's led that team. Christian Horner, a couple of weeks ago, was accused of, quote, inappropriate controlling behavior. So that's all we know. We don't know what it was. We don't know any more specifics than that.
Was it with his car? Was it with his?
Well, with a person on the team. Again, though, you're a Formula One team principal. Isn't your job to be controlling and demanding and excessive in pushing to succeed? So again, nobody aside from Christian Horner maybe knows the specifics of what happened and what the allegations are. Long story short, Red Bull is investigating him. So they actually hired an outside lawyer to do an investigation, and Christian Horner last week was interviewed for several hours about the circumstances and answered questions, so on and so forth. So there is ripe speculation that Christian Horner will be removed as team principal. Now, I don't think that just because Christian Horner goes away, that Red Bull takes a nosedive and all of a sudden Max Verstappen can't win any races in 2024 is a complete disaster. But if you take away the CEO of a very high-performing company that brought that company up to its success and pulled together the people that made that company the success, it's going to deteriorate over time unless you have an app replacement. And we could see Christian Horner out of that role by the early part of this season. It won't have an immediate impact, I wouldn't think, on Max Verstappen, let alone the 2024 season, at least early on. But over time, that might enable the other teams to catch up really quickly.
So
that is a story to watch. I think Red Bull will definitely have the drama off the track, like we talked about with Will Power. The drama the issues off the track for him that affected him. Red Bull is going to have that going into the 2024 season. That said, Red Bull and Max Verstappen have been so far ahead of the competition for so long, it is hard to see that they won't get a good head start on the season and then just have to defend no matter what happens in the second part of this season. So I do think Max Verstappen is the rightful just choice. We're really waiting until the new generation of car comes in 2025, and that's really where the second story of Formula One picks up that has been going on right now, which is Lewis Hamilton. The second biggest story, or maybe the biggest story, equal co-important stories in the Formula One offseason, Lewis Hamilton, who has been born and raised by Mercedes, won all of his championships driving Mercedes cars, currently drives for Mercedes, and is probably the main rival to Max Verstappen, and probably one of the only ones that could really challenge him nose to nose if they had the right car, announced that he is going to Ferrari in 2025. Oh. This will be his last season with Mercedes, the team that he's been with his entire career. So out at Ferrari in 2025 is going to be Carlos Sainz. It's going to be a pairing of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, and we'll see what Lewis Hamilton is able to do with the Ferrari organization and see what Mercedes is going to do with Lewis Hamilton with just 1 year before he goes off to their competition.
And that could have an impact on everything with the team, correct?
Absolutely. Because they know that Lewis Hamilton is going to a competitor in 2025, they are purposely going to keep him out of any kind of car development, any kind of stuff that they're working on that might have future use. Yeah, he's going to be driving the car. Yeah, he has institutional knowledge of Mercedes and has been there forever. He probably knows the organization as well as anybody, but any of the new pieces, any of the new development, any of the new philosophies that come along with their car design and their strategy, Lewis Hamilton is likely not going to be part of that. So I think Lewis Hamilton is set up for a really difficult year in 2024. I think he's just basically going to try to get the most that he can, help Mercedes try to win the Constructors' Championship, if that's even possible. But certainly as the season goes on, as we get closer to the end of the year, I think you're going to see Hamilton's ability to catch up to anybody that's ahead of him at that point and close the gap is going to be next to nothing.
Okay, so just looking at the futures, again, you can see it's pretty simple. There's the top three, and then you have Lando Norris in between. So is Lando Norris the one that might make out in this? Is there anything going on with the Lando Norris camp? Because if not, it sounds like he could be the one that benefits the most.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think if there's anybody out there that has, so, preface this all with the fact that from a 2024 to 2023 to 2024, there are absolutely no changes in the drivers and the teams for Formula One. So
Okay.
every single driver is back in the exact same car, the 2024 version, same team for this year. We do have some stuff that can affect that over the season that I just talked about with Hamilton and Christian Horner at Red Bull. But you're right. If McLaren continues on the same trajectory that they were on last year, if they're able to adapt their car to the 2024 design specs, be able to close some of the gap that they had to Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull, I do think Lando Norris, the way that he got the speed out of that car last year, if he has a better car this year, he could put himself into the mix. So I think from a stability standpoint and from an ability to be able to close the gap, I think Lando Norris is the one that you want to be looking at. That said, Ferrari obviously is in that mix as well. So Charles Leclerc is staying put. He knows he's staying put for 2025. Ferrari is working on a completely new philosophy for the new rules package that's coming up, and they're going to want to take advantage of that to be able to put Lewis Hamilton, their new signing in 2025, in the best position possible to win a championship as well. So I think the two guys that you got to look at as most likely to be truly challenging Max Verstappen this year, should anything happen to Red Bull or Max Verstappen, going to be Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc.
Okay, and Charles Leclerc is right now at 22-1. And again, we're not just talking about winning a championship, but being able to win a few races.
Win races.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Nobody could do it last year other than Red Bull. But they almost had a shutout in the entire season. But I think 2024 competition is going to get a little bit more tight. I do think Max Verstappen is still going to be head and shoulders above. But if you're looking for people that could close the gap, look at Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, look at Lando Norris in McLaren.
Okay, so Leclerc being the sleeper there at 22-1. And because really, if you think about it, let's see, if you're 22, well, let me see. I'm going to go ahead and we'll pop up the first race. So the first race is in Bahrain. So, and that's going to be taking place on when? When is that?
I think it's March 2nd. The first practice is February 29th, if I'm not mistaken, which puts the first race on the 2nd or 3rd. It looks like the 3rd. So March 3rd.
All right. So Verstappen at 250 to win. Then you have even better odds because Lando Norris is 12-1. Sergio Perez is 12-1. He's a second choice. And then there is Leclerc at 14-1. So, I'm just going to give an example. All right, how many races are there?
That's a good question. I want to say 25. Let's see here.
Somewhere around 25 then. All right. So let me give an example while you look that up. And that is Leclerc his odds might be the same for every race, you would think. 14-1, maybe 12-1, 16-1, whatever. Just on average. If you think about it, if you think Leclerc could win 2 races, because you're not going to make out too much, of course, if it's one. But let's say he can win 2 races. If you wager on Leclerc every single race and he wins 2 races, you should make money. So
absolutely,
I think that
there are 24 races. If he stays at 14. You said he was at 14.
Yes.
If he stays there, you are absolutely correct. You're going to be in the money if you pick him every single race.
Yeah. So that's again, because we're trying to do the very best we can of how you can make money on this sport. It's not very easy, but that would be the way to do it. And look, you just never know what could happen. Maybe there's an injury. You don't know.
Absolutely right.
Max could get hurt.
Absolutely. Yep. And usually those unexpected things, aside from injuries, those unexpected things with the cars happen in the first races of the season. So once they get back to Europe, that's when the reliability really takes hold and they figure out all their teething problems. But these first couple of races that are taking place in the Middle East, Bahrain, I think Saudi Arabia, some of the other ones, maybe even they go to Australia early on, those are going to be the ones where you see more attrition than you see in other races the rest of the season. So if you want to get on the Leclerc bandwagon at 14-1, I would recommend doing it early. Certainly Lando Norris as well.
Yeah, and everything would be wide open if something were to happen to Max and he was taken out somehow of the season, which nobody wants, of course. Even though he dominates, he's a very important figure. It's sort of like Tiger Woods, how important it was. Even though you knew every time he went out there, he was like even money to win a golf tournament, which is just ludicrous. But it is what it is. In one way, it hurts because there's not a lot of money out there to be made in gambling, but on the other end, it's big for marketing the sport. But do you think that then next year you would feel pretty good that we could be closing the gap considerably if everything goes well this year?
Yeah, I think with the new car coming, the new rules package, all that good kind of stuff really resets the stage, and that's what everyone's really working toward.
Okay.
They can evolve their cars, they can evolve the platform. Every year is going to be a little bit different. Somebody's going to find something that somebody else didn't, and that's going to kind of hold throughout the season. But as that current rules package moves on, the competition gets narrower and narrower, closer and closer. It really takes a wholesale rules change to be able to, whether it's the engine package or the complete car, to really reset the bar for everyone.
All right. So I think we've done a good job of getting everybody ready for 2024 in motorsports with the three big series. And again, just want to remind everybody the way it's going to work is that, and that's the reason I wanted to put the name tags up. Because it's the first show, you get an opportunity to know who we are and all that kind of stuff, and what series we're going to cover the most. So each one of us will have videos to preview every race in that series. You will see CJ and Eric join me on NASCAR coverage from time to time, but it won't be a lot, but there'll be a few opportunities. Especially, I think Eric mentioned last week something about where he'll have some open schedule dates that he might actually be able to participate. So we'll definitely do like we've done the last few years with you, CJ, where we bring you in to preview the playoffs for NASCAR. So that's kind of what's going to happen for NASCAR. And then for F1, you're pretty much going to be solo for all 24 races. Your videos will come out every week. Starting with the first, you'll have a season preview edition, just like we talked about with Eric. And then Eric, of course, will cover IndyCar. And Eric will have two duties. One will be to preview the races each week or every time there's a race. The other duty is going to have the interviews with the drivers and, again, the personalities of IndyCar with his new role. So we're very excited about that and looking forward to it. That's why I'm just really looking forward to that first one. Because the first one is just going to make a domino effect for all the other ones. But it's almost like that first one, it's like when you're I don't know, when you're thinking about something happening, and then you don't know if it's going to happen, and it's almost like you need to see it happen for it to be real, and we know it's real. It's just that it hasn't happened yet, and when it happens, it's going to be cool. It's going to be great to see Eric interviewing IndyCar drivers on our channel all season long, because I don't even know if there are going to be any channels out there on YouTube that's going to be able to say they could do that.
It's going to be very cool. It's a great opportunity for him. I was thrilled when he announced it to us. Looking forward to the 2024 season. Looking forward to seeing it at some of the racetracks as well.
Yes, and we'll be here all season long. Can't wait to talk, starting with the Daytona 500. I will have a Daytona 500 preview, and not even sure. I haven't even talked to CJ to find out if he's going to be joining me or not, but whether he does or not, we will have a Daytona 500 preview video, and that's going to kick things off and then all the way down the line. So don't forget to subscribe. That is the most important thing. We want you guys to chat it up, get the community going. We have a Discord link. You can join the Discord link. That's open to everybody to talk about anything you want. You got questions for us, anybody, especially our two top analysts, let us know what's on your mind. And we'll see you again real soon here on our latest video on our new Mystery Caution YouTube channel. For Eric Smith, for CJ Verdun, I'm Greg DePalma, and we'll see you soon.